Hey folks, welcome to our Friday edition of Ask a Lawyer Live. I'm Dave Brannen, lawyer and owner here at Resolute Employment and Disability Lawyers. We've got our Friday, which is our wildcard day, where I can either bring on a guest, cover a special topic, or just take the day off sometimes. Well, today I got done moving my stepdaughter out of university. So we've been there doing that the last couple of days, and I got home in time to make sure that we do this today. So what we're going to be talking about today is I'm going to take you through another questionnaire type form that you may have to fill out for an insurance company. I kind of committed to doing a series on all the different types of forms that insurance companies can send to people and do a long discussion on here, answering questions as well, to help people better understand like what their options are, what they should do with these forms. Much easier than trying to force people to pay for a consultation, which I will basically say exactly what I'm going to tell you today. And also, it goes beyond what our support staff were able to explain to people over the phone. So whenever I see these forms come across our desk, I take the opportunity here to discuss them on live here. What else for today? So we'll also, because I had to cancel yesterday, after I get done the presentation, I will take phone calls from people. If you do want to phone in and have more questions that you want to ask me directly, you absolutely can do that. Just realize that it's public. And so you may not want to give out every detail. You may want to ask things in the hypothetical, or you're calling for a friend, all the wink, wink. So just keep it so that you don't get your personal information out there. But it does give us a better chance for you to ask questions, and I can give more details. If you're a little shy about calling in, or it's just not your thing, please go ahead and just put your questions in the chat and just put a Q in front of it, and then I'll know that you're asking a question. Sometimes I just see people making comments, and I will kind of comment on your comments if they look like they're going to add to the discussion. Also, we're not going to be streaming on Facebook anymore. We're just going to be only streaming on YouTube. So just keep that in mind. We're doing that because Facebook has some pretty restrictive guidelines, and well, not really guidelines. They have restrictive requirements for discussing anything around discussions of medical conditions, and these types of things can be quite detrimental to our law firm to be flagged as someone who is basically, they put us in the same category as someone who's trying to sell like rhinoceros tusk treatments and these types of things. So you get lumped in if they hear you talking too much medical and things like that, they think you're selling medical cures or devices and this kind of thing. So I can't really live stream anymore on YouTube for that reason, unless I can figure out a way that we're able to do it. But I don't want to be censoring myself talking. I don't want to be censoring myself talking about this stuff. So I'd rather just do it on YouTube, where we're able to just freely discuss everything. I think that's pretty much it. So I think I've explained everything. So let's dive in here. What I'm going to do is today we're going to be talking about an employment or an education and work history questionnaire. And like always, we're going to record this, so we'll post this as a standalone video as well. So I'm going to start over from the top. All right, let's do it. Hi there, I'm Dave Brannen. I'm a lawyer at Resolute Employment and Disability Lawyers. Today we're going to be taking you through the Employment and Work History Questionnaire, or Employment, Education, and Work History Questionnaire, that insurance companies will often send to people who are on an approved long-term disability claim. This is one of several types of questionnaire type forms that people get sent. This is part of our series where we go through all these types of forms. On an earlier episode, we touched on the activity questionnaire, whereas today this is the educational history and work experience type questionnaire. So what I like to do in these videos is they do go a little bit long, but we will go in depth. I'll do some background, and then we'll jump in and go line by line through a sample form. So we'll look at the type of form that you may be receiving. Won't be word for word like yours, but yours will likely share a lot of these characteristics. So let's dive right in. Hopefully you can use this information to make decisions about whether you should fill out these forms, how you should fill out these forms, such that you can protect yourself and try to avoid any termination of benefits. Let's dive in here. All right. So first of all, let's talk about why this matters. If you're currently on long-term disability, receiving a questionnaire like this can be a sign that the insurance company is doing a comprehensive review of your file. This often happens at key milestones, including the 2-year mark, once your benefits go from being for your own occupation to any occupation. While it may appear to be a standard form, it's actually a critical tool that insurance use to collect information they can later reinterpret to support denying your claim for various reasons. Insurers are always looking for clues that you may have transferable skills that would allow you to go work in some other occupation. And here's the key thing to keep in mind with these questionnaires. They often will do this without telling you. They'll collect the responses from you and probably, in many cases, will send them off to a vocational expert, kind of behind the scenes, and they'll build reports and information that you're not even aware of. And then they will use those reports to justify terminating your benefits. So before we dive into it, I'm going to briefly touch on, do I even have to fill in these questionnaires? I covered this in more detail about 2 weeks ago, so I would encourage you to go back and watch that episode because I won't go through it as in depth this time. But I went through and explained part of the legal basis for answering the question, do I legally have to fill out this form? I'll just briefly touch on it here, but I would encourage you to go back and watch that other video. I wish I had the episode number. I'm going to be adding episode numbers to all these videos so that it's easier to go back and find them. But it was about 2 weeks ago, and you can look at the title. The title was around questionnaires from insurance companies. Now, the short answer, I guess, to this is you're not required to answer everything just because the insurance company asks you. However, that is an oversimplification. The limits that they're allowed to put on, the limits of what you need to disclose to them or the rights to information they have to come down to 2 points. First, any information they're asking from you must be relevant to your entitled for benefits under the policy, meaning it directly relates to your ability to work or your medical condition. And number 2, it has to be reasonably requested from the insurance company under the terms of the insurance policy. Now, what I went into greater detail on the previous episode was that second point, reasonably requested under the terms of your insurance policy. What I've discovered after doing this work for 20 years is that the rules will vary quite widely from case to case. There are some general rules that apply across the board, but what is more common nowadays is that insurance policies will have specific clauses in them related to the insurance company's right to collect information and your obligation to provide information. They're getting much more detailed now than they ever were in the past. So it is not going to be possible for someone over the phone or generally speaking with you to tell you what the extent of your insurance company's rights are to information without looking at your group benefits booklet or insurance policy. These policies can have specific wording in them that says you have to fill out these types of questionnaires, or they may have a more general wording around providing this type of information, or they may be silent on it at all. So the extent that you're required to provide this information will vary from insurance policy to insurance policy, and it's something you'd have to consider in each case. Now, if insurance companies, if you do determine they're asking for information that falls outside the bounds of relevant to directly relating to your employment or your medical condition or your ability to work, then you would have some grounds to refuse to provide that type of information. So as I just mentioned, the rules, they come from several places. The first one being, as I've mentioned, is your insurance contract. So that is the number one thing you need to look at. If you are thinking, I don't want to answer all these questions, or do I have to? The first place to look is the insurance contract. You can see this in the group benefits booklet that you get. You don't always have access to the actual insurance policy, but the group benefits booklet would summarize this information on what your obligations are. The other one are provincial insurance laws. They do vary slightly from province to province, but this will not be the number one reason that will set out your rights. It's mostly going to be set out by the insurance policy itself. Now, there are rules also that come from the case law. The case law has basically said that they've established this reasonableness standard that information they need to get needs to be material to the issue at hand. So, for example, if you have a physical disability and it's clearly that's all it is, then the insurance company can't require you to go undergo psychological testing unless they can prove that it's relevant somehow. Now, that's just an example, but just understand that the courts have interpreted this thing called material. They're looking to see material is another word for relevant, but it has to be material to the information they're asking has to be material to the issue at hand, which is your disability claim. All right. So what can insurers legally ask for? It has to be, you must disclose information that is material to the assessment of your claim. In other words, information that could reasonably affect the insurer's decision to approve or deny benefits. This is a vague and difficult to apply, but that is what the law is like. The law is made so that it can be custom fit to each unique situation. It is not full of black and white obvious answers a lot of the time. So this is one of these situations where you are actually going to have to look on a case by case basis to determine if this will apply to you or not, whether the information requested is material or not. All right. So when can you push back? This is hard. In fact, I most often advise people not to push back and just answer the questions they're asking. Pushing back is a very difficult thing to determine when something is material or not. You may not feel it is, but I would tell you as a lawyer that it is either marginally or it is. So it's usually not worth getting into fights over this with the insurance company. You're better off just giving them the information and moving on. That protects your credibility. It shows that you're someone who is trying to work with the insurance company. And to the extent that they ask for information that would later be determined to be not material, that still works to your favor, because you can say to the judge, if your case ever went to court, your lawyer could say, look, Your Honor, my client has gone above and beyond, including answering questions that were clearly not material, but they wanted to give the information, every bit of information the insurance company asked for, they gave it. They weren't the problem here. The insurance company was the problem. So the risk you run is if you start kind of interpreting that you're going to do this, you're not going to do that, you run the risk that you become part of the problem, and the judge now sees, instead of the insurance company being the clear villain, you are maybe not a villain, but you are also part of your own problems by failing to give them information, not stuff that was later turned out to be material. So you were in the wrong by not giving it to them. These are all the kind of things that you have to be careful of. The other thing is that it's quite risky to refuse these types of requests from the insurance company, because most policies now allow the insurance company to cut off your benefits if you refuse these types of requests, because they are a requirement of the policy. And if you are breaching the policy, not following all the conditions of the policy, that in and of itself is a reason for them to deny your disability benefits, even if everyone agrees that you meet the definition of disability. They can get you on these technicalities because you're in violation of another section of the policy that has nothing to do with disability. Okay. So let's get into these education and work history questionnaires. We're going to look at one here in a minute, but just generally speaking, these questionnaires typically ask for your work history going back 10, 15 years ago. So your education and training, any certificates, courses that you've completed, your technical skills, especially around computer and communications, and also descriptions of job duties and things that you've done. While this seems like very much a fact gathering information, which it sort of is, it is the basis for creating a vocational profile of you that can be used against you. So for example, saying you took a leadership course 5 years ago might seem irrelevant to you, but the insurer can use that to show that you can work in a supervisory role. Okay, something like that. Now, and the information you give here becomes legal evidence later on. So you have to make sure you're correct, because if you're later shown to have either underreported or exaggerated things, it can hurt your credibility, and you do not want this to hurt your credibility. Now, what is the hidden purpose? There is a hidden purpose. There's always an agenda. When we looked at the activity questionnaires, I told you that the hidden agenda there was oftentimes that they're using that as a baseline from which they can do surveillance and try to find inconsistencies between your activity questionnaire and the surveillance, and that gives them a reason to terminate your benefits. So that's usually the hidden agenda there. The hidden agenda with these vocational questionnaires, where they're asking for They're basically completing a vocational profile of you. The hidden agenda here is something called a transferable skills assessment. A transferable skills assessment is a paper report created by a vocational expert. They basically plug they get all your data about your work history, your medical conditions, your limitations, your education level. They plug it all into computer programs, and they can determine these programs map your skills out and will quote unquote match them to theoretical jobs that exist in the Canadian economy. The government of Canada has cataloged all the different types of jobs in Canada, and under the I'm drawing a blank on what it's called. I'm thinking of the DOT, but that's in the US. What is it called? I'll look it up here in a second. But there's basically an occupational classification system in Canada, and they will plug it into that system, and it basically is a matrix of all the like a listing of all the jobs in Canada, listed by industry, by mental requirements, by physical requirements. They list the salary amounts and all this kind of stuff. So they can plug in your profile and see if it matches, your abilities match with any jobs in the database. And if so, how much would those jobs pay? That's what they're doing. And the reason they do this is because they use it they use it as evidence that there is other jobs that you can go do now that you are moving from disability from your own occupation to disability from any occupation. Transferable skills assessments are some of the primary evidence that is used to show that there are other occupations that you can do based on your abilities, your disability, and your education history and all this kind of stuff. And so the goal of these TSAs, transferable skills and assessments, are to cut off your benefits at the change of definition. All right. So they don't tell you about it. And it always raises my question, like, why not? They could do a better assessment. So for example, if they actually, so when we get these types of assessments done for our own clients, I would never get one done on my own client where the client did not speak with the person doing the assessment, because invariably that creates a much weaker report. So in some ways, it's fine that they do it without talking with you. Now, sometimes they will set these up that you do talk to the person, but not always. Especially if you're getting sent this form. If you're getting sent this form, that almost tells me that they are for sure choosing to not tell you that they're getting this vocational assessment done. Because if they were going to do the vocational assessment, you would do this form as part of the assessment with the professional that you've booked the time to meet with. Okay. So the fact that you're getting a questionnaire like this means they're going to do a sneaky transferable skills kind of behind your back. Now, why don't they tell you? Well, I guess they don't want, they're trying to not have you challenge anything. They don't really want to give you a chance to respond. They really are just trying to get this done as fast as possible, because maybe they're under the gun. Like maybe there's only a few months left until you get to the change of definition, and they just want to get this out and have some reason, some basis from to say that that you are not that you're not entitled to benefits beyond the change of definition. So, that can explain it. They don't have to share the report with you. If the report comes back that isn't good for them, they don't even have to tell you they got it. So there's a bunch of reasons. Now, eventually you can get this report by requesting the claim file, but they don't have to tell you about it necessarily, right? While the claim is ongoing. They can have this stuff in your file, and if they're not really allowed to lie to you about it, but if you don't know to ask about it, then they're not going to volunteer that, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to go and get a vocational report about you from someone you've never met, but we're just going to feed them all this information, and they're going to print out a report saying these are the jobs you can do. So people do get completely blindsided by, out of the blue, the insurance company will give a denial at the change of definition, and they'll be referencing a transferable skills assessment, and you'll be like scratching your head like, I don't remember getting anything done like that, but this is what it was. They got this you to fill out a questionnaire, and then they arranged to have it done. All right. So how does a transferable skills assessment work? A vocational expert builds a profile of you, a vocational profile, based on the types of jobs you've done, your age, your education level, your transferable skills, like whether you've worked in customer service, whether you've only worked in labor type jobs, if you have computer skills, these types of things. Skills that can, when they say transferable, it just means the skills that you used in your work history can be used in other types of jobs. So you're already kind of trained to do and capable of doing other types of jobs that fit within your abilities and vocational profile. They will also take into account any restrictions from your doctor. So they can be combining these vocational questionnaires with updated information from your doctor and that kind of thing. Many times they will get your doctor's complete file, and they'll have another behind the scenes doctor. So they'll hire another behind the scenes doctor, who's someone you'll never meet with, who will just review your doctor's records and kind of make disparaging comments and say, look, there's nothing here. A lot of doctors don't put a lot of details in the reports, so they will use their own doctor to look at them and say, yeah, they're not reporting or any kind of restrictions and things, so there's no restrictions, is how they'll go at it. Now, you very well could have restrictions. Your doctor's just not writing it down in their clinical notes. And it's the National Occupational Classification, the NOC. It's the DOT in the US. It's the NOC in Canada. So it's the NOC that they use to feed your vocational profile into, to find out what other jobs that you might be able to do. Now, some of the outputted jobs are just ridiculous because they never talk to you. A lot of these vocational experts are kind of flying blind. So they will make, it's actually like, I don't mind. I'll just be honest. I don't mind insurance companies doing this if I'm going to be representing a client, simply because they are so easy to attack. And often there's so many buffoon mistakes, because if they had simply spoken to you, they wouldn't make these obvious errors. So I really think it's a disservice. The insurance company's doing themselves a disservice by doing these kind of behind your back rather than involving you. Now, I guess they do it because they don't care. Like, if they get a report that helps them cut off your benefits, maybe that's all they're looking for. And they'll live to fight another day, because a lot of the people will get that and just say, oh, well, I guess I can't do anything. And they'll try to go back to work, or they won't do anything further. Not everybody will go and sue the insurance company and fight it. So maybe that's what their calculation is. But these reports, when they're done like this, are very easy to undermine. Sometimes they're just hilariously bad, because the jobs that they print out to say that you can do are just so obviously inappropriate, for reasons that if they had just spoken with you and gone a little deeper, it would have become quite obvious. All right. Now, the big danger, there's not a lot of dangers. Like, of all the forms to do, this is the most straightforward, but there is some dangers, and I'll just go through some of them. So one of them is just overstating. Sometimes people almost want to pad the resume, that is their reaction here. So they will overstate what they did to sound more qualified and professional. That can turn around and bite you, because it may make you seem like you have greater transferable skills than you do. So you never want to overstate you don't want to puff it up. You want to be accurate. You don't want to overstate your previous roles or what you did and that kind of thing. Keep in mind, they're using this to try to build a profile that's as broad as possible in order to cut off your benefits. So another mistake you can do is leave out critical details. So you may indicate that you were able to do certain jobs, but if you leave out the fact that you got significant accommodations, like you were allowed a flexible schedule, they only required you to do the light duty aspects of the job because of your, that kind of thing. So you will want to clarify it if you were putting jobs that you had in there, if there were any type of accommodations or limitations that you were allowed to work from home or whatever. You'd want to put those qualifications in there, because that is absolutely a way that they will misuse some of these, because they will just assume that you were able to do the job complete with no restrictions, that kind of thing. So you would want to make sure to indicate if you did have any of that restrictions on some of those jobs. You want to make sure that's in there. Another way that you can make a mistake on these is not to connect your work history to symptoms you now experience. So, for example, you might have previously been able to work as a receptionist, but now you have, because of chronic pain, fatigue, you have cognitive impairment, and it's critical to explain, your symptoms were a lot less when you were able to do that job in the past, and it would be no longer feasible for you to do that type of work. So just because there are certain jobs in your history does not mean you are automatically capable of doing those jobs now. And it's important for you to connect so that a good transferable skills person would make these connections, the vocational, but when they're not talking with you, they may not have the full picture because they'll only know about your medical, whatever the insurance company provides them. And what the insurance company provides them can either be intentionally or unintentionally not giving the full story of your symptoms, limitations, etc. So either the insurance company can intentionally withhold information, which they have done and gotten into a lot of trouble for in the past, or it just may be inadvertence and negligence on their part by forgetting and not giving all the information. And it can lead to the same, but it all leads to the same thing. The vocational assessor has an incomplete picture. So they will see that you had all these past jobs and they will assume, oh, well, they did all this administrative work in the past. Now their last job was a little more physical, but they could easily go back to these. They got all these skills for administration, so they should be able to go do that. But they're not connecting the fact of your level of fatigue, side effects of medications, and all these types of things that would make those types of jobs completely out of the question. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So just give me a second here to make this work. And we're going to go through an actual form. Now, this is a form that I've recreated. I don't like to use the exact forms that we see from insurance companies, so I just make my own and that are similar. But it'll give you the basic, the gist of it. So just bear with me here. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing that all right. So here we go. This is what a questionnaire will look like. I'll just give you the big picture here. So it's like 2 pages in a little bit. And of course, there's this thing at the bottom that we're going to go through as well. So let's just start with the form itself. It'll be just something like this. It'll be called something like work and education history or something to that effect. They'll ask for your name. This stuff might already even be filled in. These statements at the beginning, you'll see similar statements like this. These statements are made in order to help if there was ever a dispute. They want to use these statements at the beginning to connect this to say why it's material to your claim. And we'll see what it says here. In order to continue the evaluation of your claim, so they're saying this is material to your claim, we need additional information. Please complete this form to the best of your ability and return it to us. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. So they're saying the information on this form is material to the evaluation of your claim. They're just trying to head off if you try to dispute that this is not material. And this is obviously material. So I would tell you that you absolutely have to fill out a form like this, and you shouldn't have any hesitation to do so, but we're still going to go through it. Now, you'll see here, this is where they're asking you for your job history. And I've only reproduced 3 different blocks here, but these blocks are all the same. They're wanting you to go through each of your jobs for the past 15 years. So they do want to go back a long time. And they're asking you to fill in things like the employer, your job title, the dates you held the job. So like from when to when, your salary is very important, reasons for leaving, duties. I got a typo there. So yeah. Anyway, US. Oh, no, that's not a typo. I thought it was. This is a hard one to fill out. This usual mental or physical requirements. Like that is not something that every person out there is just going to be able to rattle off. If you have trouble, you can say like, I have difficulty trying to, I'm not sure what you mean by this. Or you can, if you think you know what some of them are, you can write some of them and say, but I expect there would be others that I am not thinking of and would need to have a vocational expert could tell you on this or something like that. I guess what I would say is if you list anything specific, just say that this is the best of my knowledge and there may be other things that I'm not considering at this point, because, something to that effect. You'd want to qualify it. And then you would just complete this with each of the jobs. And if there's more than 3, you'd have to attach a page and go through them all. Do your best. If you don't remember the exact dates, you just write in here, can't remember the exact dates. I think it was 2002 to 2007, but I'm not completely sure. This is to the best of my knowledge. Something like that. You're not going to be faulted for getting like factual mistakes here. Do your best, but you're not going to be faulted for getting factual mistakes. even on the number of employers, if you've had a lot of employers and you're not 100% sure if you remembered them all, just say this list is complete to best of my knowledge, but there may be some employment that I'm not recalling, and I will update you in the future if I do recall anything else. Something like that. Just leave it open that you may not have remembered everything, because if you don't say something like that, they can then say you intentionally left it out to hide it for some reason, right? Even though that's probably not the case. Okay, so the first part in this form anyway is your employment history. They want this is like a resume almost, but in addition to the like normal things on a resume, they want things about your duties, reason for leaving job, and that kind of thing. So don't make sure you're as accurate as possible with the reason for leaving job. So if you can't recall the reason, just say I can't recall. Don't put in like fired if you, or like don't say left if you were actually fired. You don't want to like you want to make sure this becomes legal evidence. So any incorrect answer, or if you are trying to like make yourself look better or whatever, like you don't want to say reason for leaving job was disability if in fact you were let go or the thing shut down in the pandemic. So just know that they're later going to cross-reference all this stuff with other information, looking for inconsistencies. And because you're making this statement on this form, they can now, if there's inconsistencies, they can say you were trying to mislead us. It's a way to undermine your credibility. So be careful. And if you're not certain on any of these things, you just write, to the best of my knowledge, it was this, but I cannot recall exactly. Something you want to like make qualifiers for anything where you're not completely sure. All right, let's look at the next section here. This is not difficult. This is just very like basic information. It's hard to get this wrong. Highest grade completed. You just put all this stuff in. Now, I have had situations where a client came to me and said, you know what, David, like I have to like fess up here. I lied when I got my job. I lied and told them that I had a high school diploma, but I really didn't. And then I went to college and I lied to the college and told them I had a high school diploma, and they did let me in and I got my college degree, but I actually didn't have a high school diploma, and I lied to my employer and I lied to the college as well. That actually happened. So, that is something you might want to talk over with a lawyer. I would tell you, if you talk to me, I would tell you to just honestly, like you're probably living with this, thinking this is this great lie. This is the kind of lie that people will let you off with because you did it to try to get ahead. It was done for good reasons. You weren't hurting anyone. Yes, it is dishonest, but you like this person really, she was an admirable person who was basically kicked out of her home when she was a teenager. She's living on the streets some of the time. She's scrapping along. She had a really tough life. So it was not a big deal. The other lawyer tried to scare her to make it look like she was going to be this big fraud. I was like, absolutely not. Like any judge or jury sees this, they're going to be crying at hearing your story. You were able to pull yourself up get your way into college, graduate college, have a great career. None of it matters. So I would be, if you didn't complete high school, I would end the lying about it here. I would make sure if you didn't complete it, put it here. Now, yes, you'll say, well, that's now it's going to be different between here and what's in other places, but you're better off. You can always explain it. If you have to explain it, you can. You don't want to lie when you're asking for it on here. You can explain why you might have lied about it in the past, but you want to be upfront with them about everything. And so you should put in here whatever's the actual truth. Same thing with college. They want to know about that, degrees. Now, there was even something here that I was scratching my head on. Let me see here. No, most of this is pretty easy to answer. List any other skills you have acquired through hobbies, adult education courses, or any other certificates you have. This is very open-ended. And if you forget something here, they could say that you left it out on purpose to try to mislead them and to thinking you have less skills than you do. So again, if you have some hobbies and things that are obvious, you can list them here, but always, always, always put, this is all I can recall at this time, and I am not sure exactly what you're asking for here, but if I recall anything else in the future, I can let you know. Something like that. But some of these are obvious if you have other certificates and things, but some of the hobby stuff, like it's very open-ended what they're asking for. So this type of question, you would be given a lot of slack if you forgot something, because this is a very broad open-ended question, and obviously people may not recall everything. And some of these hobbies you might not do anymore. Like it's easy to just forget things. So, do you have any computer keyboarding skills or training? This is another one that's a bit ambiguous, because skills or training, what does it mean to have computer skills? Like, so again, this is kind of ambiguous. What I would do is just answer it to the best of your ability and say, I don't understand the question completely, if that's true. But this is what I think you're asking for. And I use a computer every day in my job, or I rarely use a computer, or whatever. Put it in there. Just make sure it's completely accurate, because you don't want to put in there you never use a computer, and then they can see you're on Facebook 24/7. So just remember that you have to be accurate with this stuff. All right. So computer experience is often an area. The reason they're asking for this is most jobs that people are most matching transferable skill jobs are going to require computer experience. These would be jobs that can be done from home, that are sedentary, that can be done part-time. So when people have limited physical skills, even when they have limited mental skills as well, computer type jobs are usually the best opportunities for there to be a match within the transferable skills. So again, very, very important here that you get this right. They're asking you to check all that apply. So in this form, they weren't asking for details. They were just asking for yes or no. So one of these, I had no idea what it meant. So able to send emails. You just put yes if you can or no if you can't, but make sure you're correct. Able to send emails with docs attached. So attaching a document to an email, just yes or no. Able to surf on the internet, yes or no. Able to use Word. Maybe you'll say, what is Word? If you don't know what that is, then you would put no. Word is like a program you use to write things on a computer that you can then print off, like a letter or other type of thing. Like this was created in Word, and then I saved it as a PDF document. This one here, what is it? If someone can tell me in the chat what this means, I have no idea what they're asking here. Home experience. Like, what home experience? I don't know what that means. Home experience. Able to use Word, home experience. I don't know what they meant by that, honestly. I would put a question mark there if I was filling this out. Software used. Again, you could list software that you're familiar with, or you can say I don't really understand, because is something software or not? Like, if something in a web browser, is that software, or is it just like a program that you upload? Is it an app? I would just be careful here and just be as broad as you can. Like, you almost want to like over anything that might possibly be considered software. You'd want to list it and say, these are all I can think of. There may be more. Level of experience. Again, what does this even mean? Level of experience of what? Like, that's a very subjective thing. And I would just maybe put a question mark there and say, I'm not really sure how to answer this. This is an ambiguous question. Home experience. No idea what they mean by that. Recent current job seeking. This might be kind of a trap here, that they're going to get you like on this form. Oh yeah, have you? Yes, I've contacted my former employer. Yes, I've been actively job searching for a year. Like, these could be traps where they will now try to like say, maybe we should have cut you off before. Unlikely. They're more or less just wanting to know. I guess sometimes they're hoping you're going to say no when you actually were doing some of these things, because now they've got you in a trap where they can hurt your credibility. So absolutely, you have to be correct in any of this. Don't think they're not going to know or find out, because they just assume that they will, because often they will find out. And so just be very honest here on what your job search is looking like, and when you contacted and what kind of responses you got and that kind of thing. Now, what's one thing that is, it says, what resources have you used in job seeking? So you might put other, you could put like, what are some of the online ones, like monster.com, Indeed? There might be some of these things that you can list here, things that you were using to look, LinkedIn, that kind of thing. Now, this form was unique. So there were some things about this form that I think is better than the form we looked at 2 weeks ago that was on activities. You might note on the activity one a few weeks ago, there was no signature line right under the questionnaire. there was only one signature line on that other form, and it was at the bottom after, as you'll see here, after all of the other stuff that's in here that is not really relevant to the questionnaire itself. So I do give this insurance company who did this form, I do give them credit for at least putting, this is one of my biggest complaints, is you should just have people be able to sign right under this without asking them all these to sign up for all these other things. So I would recommend that anyone who gets a questionnaire like this, obviously you can get legal advice, but generally speaking, this type of information is absolutely going to be relevant. There's nothing here beyond some of these ones that I indicated were a little ambiguous or unclear. Most of this is very straightforward questions. You should answer them. You should make sure that you are accurate. If there's any possibility that you are not 100% sure of things, you have to write that in there. And then you would just state it and sign it right here. Okay, that's what you would do. Now, this form, like all of these forms, has this other thing attached to it. Now, with this one, it was attached as a separate, it wasn't included within the questionnaire itself. It was attached as a separate document, which is good. Because one of my biggest complaints about these questionnaires is a lot of them have built in, like, so this would be page like 3, page 4 would be this. So they would build in these agreements and things at the bottom. They build it right into the form itself. I think it's very bad behavior for the insurance companies to do that. This time they did not do that. This form was included as an add-on from what I could tell. Like it wasn't the same. It wasn't included. It was sort of like extra sheets that were attached. But because it's not built into the form itself, you would have someone that could easily think, oh, well, I can just sign this and I won't sign this other thing. Whereas before, the signature line wasn't here and all of this would have been built back up into this form. So you felt pressured that you had to sign off on everything or nothing. But that's not true. You can always, if this signature line wasn't here, you could still sign and date this underneath here no matter what. And if they sent this to you online, you could demand to have like a paper copy. So that, because the problem with online is it keeps you from doing things like signing here. They limit what you're able to do. So you could ask that it be done in paper so that you can add additional information. Now, let's look at this thing that came with this one. So this what came with this is the sheet that came with this form. And again, it's very, very similar to one we looked at 2 weeks ago. It's almost identical. Some changes, a little bit of changes, but basically it has these different parts. And again, what is unique here, and I've never seen it, I'll be honest, I've never seen this before until this example, was they had dating and signatures under each of the sections, which I thought was interesting. So again, they've done this in a way that allows people to pick and choose which ones they're going to sign. Whereas before, they would only have one signature at the bottom for signing off on everything, including all the questionnaire stuff. So this section here, so there's a couple sections we'll go through here. So just generally speaking, these authorization things at the bottom, there are many problems with them. So let's just start by saying, number one, you would be completely within your rights to just sign this and send it back in and ignore this altogether. Okay. This part down below, now in this case, it's easier to ignore it because they have not incorporated it right into the questionnaire itself, at least not yet. Maybe they will in the future. I don't know. But a lot of this stuff on this form is just not relevant or material to your case. So whether you have to sign off on this stuff, first of all, I would want to see your policy, your group benefits booklet to see, does your group benefits booklet require you to sign off on any of this stuff? Unlikely that it does, quite frankly, but it's not, I'd want to rule that out. But again, the rest of this, it's not things you need to do. What the rules that are set out for you are set out in the insurance policy. You don't have to agree to new agreements that are outside of what you've already agreed to in the insurance policy. So a lot of these things here, I acknowledge I must notify the insurer immediately. If some of these things are in the insurance policy, fine, like that's fine. But they're asking you to, like some of these things are probably not, like I'm leaving the country. That might not be in your insurance policy. So they're trying to get you to agree to things, to commit to things that are you don't have to commit to. Now you might say, well, what makes a difference? It may not matter, but it's just more the principle of it. that some of these things you already are going to be obligated. Like, I apply for benefits under CPP, you are already obligated 99% sure under your existing policy for this anyway. So why are you going to agree to things that you already agreed to? Now, the insurance company's point of view, they might say, yeah, David, I see where you're coming from, but you're always looking at the negative. Like, we're just telling them things that so that they know that they have these obligations, because people don't read their insurance policy. They might not know they have these obligations. So we're just getting them to acknowledge that they know it, because we're not adding anything new. These are already things that they have to tell us, but we're just bringing it to their front of their mind so that they're not going to get caught off guard by not telling us this and getting in trouble. And I'd say, well, yeah, okay, if you want to look at it that way, maybe you're right. But again, it's enough for you to read this over and see these types of things they're looking for. And in fact, all the things here, I would tell you that you should notify the insurer for all of these things. So honestly, these are all things you should notify the insurance company for, in my mind. Even if it's not technically in the policy, I still tell people to tell them that if you're gonna leave the country. So at the end of the day, for this section here, I would not feel bad for telling someone to sign this, because these are all things, like this specific list are all things that I would tell you that you absolutely should tell the insurance company if any of these apply to you. So again, I don't have an issue if you wanted to sign that, quite honestly, because you do have these obligations. Now, if you've done some of these and not already told them, and then you sign this, now that does put you in a bit of a bind, because you're agreeing to do it, but you haven't done it, right? So be cautious around this. Certainly, if you see something on this list and you're like, oh dear, I didn't know I was supposed to tell them this. I was discharged from hospital. I did get other benefits. Like, then you should contact them right away and let them know. Say, I saw that list of things and I didn't even realize. You should contact them and let them know. But again, not a big problem to sign this, because I was saying, like, you're agreeing to things that are not already in there. That could be true, but all of these things, these specific ones anyway, I don't have an issue with, because I would tell you for all of these things that you should notify the insurer immediately. Now, agreement, this part here is where the problem starts. So agreement, authorization, and certification. So this is where I don't like this. I certify that the information in this form, that's fine. It's okay for you to certify that this form is accurate to the best of your knowledge, if that's what they're asking for, is true and complete to the best of my knowledge. If it only said that, I would have no problem, right? Because why not? Like, you want to fill them out true and complete to the best of my knowledge. Because they've included to the best of my knowledge, I would tell you no problem. If they didn't include that there, that this information is true and complete, I would say don't say that, because you may in good faith think you've done it true and complete, but it may not be true and complete. Even though you've attempted to do that, you've forgotten something. So that's why, to best of my knowledge, I would say, okay, that's fine. You could sign this. But the thing that bothers me here is this part here, and that any further verbal statement provided by me in the future, again, I don't like that, is true and complete to the best of my knowledge. I just, there's no reason for you to be giving these future assurances and things on these forms. I don't mind people saying that for this information right now, this opens the door for interpretation, and there's no reason for you to be certifying these types of things. Again, this part here, I don't like this. I agree that both my claim and my coverage may be denied or terminated as a result of my providing false, incomplete, or misleading information. No, you should not agree to that. Because what if you gave that information honestly, not realizing that it was misleading, not realizing it was false, and not realizing it was incomplete? If this said knowingly provided false, incomplete, or misleading, then I would say, well, yeah, like, that means you intentionally were trying to mislead them. But the way they worded this will capture situations where you, in good faith, made a mistake thinking you gave true, complete, and information, and didn't realize that it was misleading or incomplete. Plus, this opens the ground for people to argue one person's complete answer is another person's incomplete answer. So it's open to interpretation. So again, you would never want to agree to that. So quite frankly, I would just say for this, let me see, can I draw on this? Maybe not. All right, I probably should have figured out how to do this before. Anyway, I would X this out. I just wouldn't sign this on this exact form. I can't tell you, like, I always have to be careful here. Like, I'm not trying to give you personal advice if this is you having this form. I would need to see your exact form, but if you had this section on a form, I would tell you to just cross it out. For this specific wording exactly as it is right here. Especially this part right here. This is the only part I would tell you to agree to, but again, you could black out, you could cross out everything except for this statement and then but put a line through everything else. You could do that too. Or you could just X this whole thing out, honestly. This one here, another one. Don't agree to this. I agree to refund monies that I may owe in accordance with the provision of the policy, and I authorize the insurer to deduct monies from my group benefits. No, you absolutely cross this out. You don't agree to that. They're allowed. They have the policy sets out the legal process by which they can get money back from you, and how refunds must happen. You don't have to agree to anything else. I agree to refund any monies that I may owe to the insurer. No, you don't have to agree to refund anything, because what about a situation where they're saying you gave false information and you're saying, no, I honestly gave you what I thought was correct. Like, you may not, you may agree that it's in hindsight it was false, but at the time you believed it to be correct. They may say, doesn't matter, it was false. So you agreed to refund monies. So now you've created a mess where you don't need one. So cross this out. I would not sign this as it is worded. If you had a variation of this wording, then maybe I'd look at it and say, maybe you could sign that. But again, this is bad, very bad. Next one here. Insurer will investigate this claim and may require personal information about me, including information regarding activities, yada, 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 yada. Yeah, this is pretty much, there's nothing disagreeable about this, because this is all material information for the most part. And they're probably entitled to this. The policy probably already says that they're entitled to get this information. And if the policy doesn't specifically say it, then it would still fall under the common law, where they're allowed to material information regarding the claim. And this just describes material information. I think the only reason this paragraph is in here is to set up these next things, where this is more of a statement of fact around what your obligations are. And now they're saying, because of this, I authorize, and this is where you get into these authorizations. Now, I'm a little more lenient in my recommendations to people on these types of authorizations than I am this type of thing up above here, where you're agreeing to let them get monies or you this kind of stuff. You do have to reasonably cooperate with the insurer to allow them to adjudicate your claim. And that includes not withholding authorizations that are needed for them to coordinate with their vendors, the people they're working with, reasonably to adjudicate your claim. So you can't throw a gear into the works by not giving an authorization that would allow them to send your information to the independent medical doctor that they've hired. Okay. That is the kind of thing where you cannot refuse it. Now, it's interesting, because if you don't sign something like this, and then it's hard for them, if you haven't already signed an authorization similar to this kind of worded one here, where it gives a bunch of broad things, unless you've signed something like this, they can't send this questionnaire off to a vocational assessor behind your back, right? Because they wouldn't be allowed to, this is your personal information. They wouldn't be allowed to give your personal information unless you sign something similar to this or have already done so. So what you could do here, you could leave this here and sign and allow it to go through if you want to make things move along as efficiently as possible. Like, your interest is in getting them to adjudicate the claim, get a decision, good or bad. I would just want to be able to get it, not gum things up and slow everything down. Then you could just sign off on this. But signing off on this would allow them to go to, like, behind your back to the vocational assessor, which I have said is not always bad, because when they do that, I believe they're shooting themselves in the foot, because these are often the easiest type of vocational reports to shoot down, to show that they're terrible, that they don't make any sense. And we end up hiring our own. And so they're comparing the one that they got with the person that we hired that interviewed you and got all the information. So it's open to interpretation whether it's even bad that they're doing these behind your back because of how poorly they often go. So again, it's not unreasonable that some people would sign this, and I would not say that it's a terrible idea, quite honestly, if you just want to have your case be able to be adjudicated and move along. Now, you could cross this out and write below it and say, I am not willing to give a broad authorization, but I'm willing to sign specific authorizations for any third party that you need to disclose my information to on a one-by-one basis. Now, that really pisses them off because it's just so much extra work. And if they had to do that on every case, then things would grind to a halt. So again, a lot of this is on expediency for the insurance company, that if they're having to get these customized authorizations on all their thousands and thousands of cases, it would grind things to a halt and make it very difficult for them to adjudicate the claim. Your goal should not necessarily just be to piss them off and makes things difficult for them, because it also will make things difficult for you. So it's that, I forget that saying, but you will do something and it comes back on you and it's bad for you too. You want them to adjudicate cases quickly so you can get a decision approval or denial. Better to get, like I tell people, you're better to get a denial fast than to get a denial, but instead of taking 1 month, it takes 8 months. Like if you're going to get denied fast, because most people have a limited amount of resources. So the faster they can get a denial and deal with it, the better, because you have now, instead of spending 8 months of your savings, you've spent 1 month and now you can get into the fighting of it. But if you just drag it out for 8 months, now you've wasted 8 months of your savings and resources, and now you're into the fighting. You're better to get into the fighting early. So again, I don't know that you should not always just go to war for going to war's sake over not allowing this type of authorization in the context of a form like this. This is the same thing. So it's just saying people, service providers. This is another saying that you are allowing people within their circle to use your information for adjudication of the claim. This type of thing, I never have a problem with this type of thing. I never do. And in fact, I encourage people to sign it. You have to, most of the policies will have in there that you do need to sign you have to reasonably cooperate to allow them to adjudicate the claim. And they'll often have the same language. Like the way this works is they do have to deal with outside parties and things like that. So this is a very reasonable thing to be asked for. And I would say, yes, you could sign off. I would usually recommend people sign off on something like this, right? This one here is a bit strange. I wouldn't agree to this. I authorize the use of my social insurance number for purposes of tax reporting. I guess that might be relevant if they need to. Yeah, I guess that would be relevant. If they need your social insurance in order to create T4A slips, yes, I guess that's fine. But the second part, I would maybe cross this out. I authorize the use of my SIN for purpose of identification and administration if my SIN is used as my certificate number. Like that is bad practice. And I think the privacy commissioner has said that this is not acceptable anymore for government agencies or private businesses to use your social insurance number as like a client number, is because this is a very private piece of information. It shouldn't be used in such a willy-nilly way. So I agree with this first part. You would want to give them that power because they do have to submit those forms, but I would cross the second part out. I don't agree with that. If they're using social insurance numbers for certificate numbers, then they need to issue new certificate numbers. That is just not a reasonable thing to do. It sounds like maybe they did on some limited basis. They would never do it now, but maybe they did it in the past, and it's too much of a pain in the ass for them to go and change it all. So they're just throwing this in on every form in order to cover themselves. But I think that is very poor. You don't want that. You don't want your social insurance number plastered over every letter and email that they send out. This thing here is fine. This here is fine. You agree to photocopy. That is completely fine to agree to. So this first part is fine. Here. This here is fine as well. So they have a privacy policy on their website that goes over all this. So again, this is fine to agree to. And again, you're just saying you understand that it's there. That again, nothing really untoward there. This last one though, okay. Okay, so I got a typo here. This is saying that this is just confirming to you that they are going to keep any information they keep on you is going to be kept in a file, a benefits file, which is true. And that access is limited to their employees, representatives, reinsurers, service providers in the performance of their jobs. I don't really have a problem with that, and neither should you in most cases. Okay, these are all people within the scope. They have a reason to be dealing with your claim. Even the reinsurers sometimes I think could be relevant if they're trying to determine like how much of reserves and these things to be set for your case. So these can all be directly related to managing your claim. Persons to whom I have granted access. Yeah, that's not a problem. Persons authorized by law. Yeah, I don't have any issue. I really don't have any issue with this last one here. Okay. So again, that would be fine. This last part here is just more of an acknowledgement that you can have inaccurate information corrected. You can access to your file. Again, that's fine. I'll just highlight it to show that it's fine. So if we go back up here, so what is bad? That part was bad. This part, I'm just going to leave it. This one is, there we go. Let's see here. Anyway, whatever. This one is up in the air, whether you'd want to agree to all that or not. It really depends on how, here we go. There we go. No, we'll make it this color. So this means it's not red, it's orange. So it's caution. All right, so this is caution. I guess these ones here should be green. This is caution. You have to just decide if you care. 99% of the time, it is not going to be bad for you to sign off on this. I'll just be frank with you. But again, I can't comment on any specific person. I'd have to see your circumstances because maybe you're that 1% where it could be bad, but most people, this is not going to really matter. This here, there's nothing wrong with this because this is just a statement of fact. So again, no real problem with that one. This here is bad, completely bad. So if we were to go in here, we'd make that red, like no good, completely bad. And all the white stuff here that's all bad as well. So you were able to do things like cross this out, cross out the parts here, like all this stuff here, like you know what I'm saying? You could cross all that out and just leave that there. You could leave that. You could leave this or modify it. Like I said, you would want to leave this stuff's all fine. But this part here, you might want to cross this out. That part right there. And then you could sign this. Oh my God, I almost forgot about the bottom here. Oh no, yeah, sorry, I forgot to delete it. This is just the same thing as up above here. So again, yeah, this one here, I kind of went back and forth on this, but ultimately, this would be, I guess as a general rule, I don't like to tell people to acknowledge things that you don't really need to acknowledge because these things are all, we'll give this one the middle here. We'll go there. So this one you could sign or not sign, but again, let me be clear. Everything that's written here, I would tell them that yes, you must tell them immediately of all these things. So there's no harm in this example to signing this because I would agree that all of those things are something that you would need to notify them of. So there's no harm in you signing that. But in a different version, maybe they'll have things in there that isn't something you'd have to tell them and they're trying to slip it in there. But these ones are all fine. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. And then we're going to answer some questions here. So before I guess I get to the end, I should close out the video because this is going to be clipped. So for those of you who suffered through this whole long video, I do apologize. Maybe I'll be able to tighten this up in the post production. But if you have any questions about forms like this, I would encourage you to come and watch these videos. When people call into the office, it's very hard for us to give specific advice on these forms because we don't know your policy. We don't know all this of your situation. And we do offer consultations, but I am limited in the number of consultations I can do. So sometimes we will just tell people, like, we can't even offer you a consultation on it just due to workload issues and time and that kind of thing. The whole purpose of me doing these live streams and call-in shows is exactly for stuff like this. This is why I set aside this time of day to do these types of things. So quite honestly, we're driving anyone with questions about these types of things to bring them to the weekly call-in show usually on Thursdays, but we're going to do today as well, or to bring them to any day. Every day at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Eastern, I'm going to be doing these live streams, and you can always come with this kind of stuff. If you get a form in the future that is different, please let us know and give it to us, and we'll add it to this series because I want to keep reviewing these forms in the future. All righty. Let's go to live Q&A. Let's do it. Live Q&A. Okay, I got some questions in here. Let's see what we got. We got people saying hi. This person saying, could I refuse to fill up the employment history? No, I don't think so. I'll go back to the form here. I really don't think you would want to refuse to fill out the employment history. It's relevant information, and you would have an obligation to give it to them, in my opinion. Whoops. So if you guys recall, there was an employment history. I'm trying to do share screen. Here we go. There it is right there. So the employment history here, I think you're not seeing it. There it is. So this employment history, you would want to fill that. You'd have to fill that out. Yeah. I think everything on this needs to be filled out with, like I said, I gave some exceptions here on some of these ambiguous questions, but everything else, you really have to fill this out. It's relevant. It's relevant to the claim. It's material. The material is not a high bar to get over, and this would all be considered material to adjudicating your claim. All right. And there was another question here by Goldie. Let's have a look. David, do I need to sign or refuse to sign the PM authorization? I think what you're referring to, and I think I already covered it, but let's go have a look here. I'm going to add this back here. So I think what you're saying is this authorization down here. Would you have to sign something like this? And I think I maybe answered it. So I think there's no harm if in a form like this, there'd be no harm in signing this kind of version of it. This section here, there are parts this red part I would cross out, and I would also cross out like these parts here. I'm not going to highlight them all, but everything here in this section, other than the yellow, I would cross out everything but the yellow. But this is all I would cross out this part here. But a lot of this is fine, honestly. You don't want to get into playing games with them or just doing things because you want to get back at them. It's in your interest for them to be able to adjudicate your claim and move things along. So this is why there's not a harm in allowing this this is a overbroad. Don't get me wrong. This section here, overly broad. I don't like how it's worded, but unless you want, you could cross this out and say, give me names and specific people you want to send this to. Then they would have to send you something with the vocational expert's name on it. You're creating more paperwork and work for yourselves, and it will delay things, cause conflict with the insurer. It will delay things. So sometimes the path of least resistance is just to do what they're asking for here, because in most situations, this is not going to be detrimental to you. It's not going to be bad for you to sign this. It will allow you to get them to get it. You just want a decision out as fast as possible. If they're going to deny it, get it denied fast. You don't want a slow denial because now you've wasted all this time where you're not getting any money, and now you've wasted more savings and time and help from family. Better to get it denied quickly. So assigning this allows them to more easily share this questionnaire around with anyone in their orbit, which is what they intend to do. Like I've explained before, it's very rare that the insurance company is going to rely on this type of an authorization to go on a wide sweeping data collection process. That is just not realistic of what's going to happen in practical reality, because most people, this is mostly to allow them to just coordinate with things in their orbit of trying to transfer around information so that they can adjudicate your claim. Some of the things, admittedly, are going to go against you because they're going to be coordinating with doctors that you don't know about. They're going to be coordinating with a surveillance person, a vocational person, as in this case. But again, like, it doesn't really help you to prevent that per se, because they're doing this stuff anyway, and you might as well just let them do their thing and then deal with it. You're not going to be able to prevent them from doing these things. Now, you would slow it down by getting them to give authorizations. And yes, it's hard for them to get surveillance on you if you don't sign something like this. It's very hard for them to get surveillance on you because they would have to get an authorization form that says the surveillance agency's name on it. And you'd be like, oh, this is interesting. So again, it might be a way you could defeat. I've just thought of that today, actually. I wonder if there's a way they can get surveillance without you signing anything. Maybe, if they don't give any personal information out about you, but they have to give your address. So that might even be considered personal information. So yeah. So if this person's also asking, with the physical and mental and physical requirements, I will say, to answer to the best of my knowledge, yes. Yeah. If there's anything in here, this one doesn't ask a lot about, oh yeah, physical and mental. So if a person was filling this out, these are good questions, Goldie. If a person was filling this out, they would want to just put to the best of your knowledge here and say that I really don't understand, or I'm not quite sure. This is what I can recall. Again, some of these jobs are like 15 years ago, but due to the best of your ability, and just say, this is the best I'm able to do. You might need to get a better assessment from a vocational expert or something like that. Yeah. All right, Tyler, who is one of our regulars, has a question. Let me get rid of my screen share here. Tyler is saying, how do people who are homeless get disability? It is difficult to get disability if you're homeless. Very difficult. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't work with a lot of homeless people getting disability. So my anticipation is that it's difficult to do, because I have represented people who either were homeless or became homeless trying to win different types of claims for them. And it is very difficult to work with someone like that as a client, just because of just the nature of it. And if they're not, all homeless people are going to be having addictions or mental illness, but that is a common thing. So it just becomes very difficult to coordinate a legal case with someone who is not going to be able, just by the nature of their disability, can't be reliable or can't follow up or to get things, or that kind of thing. But people who are homeless can apply for things like ODSP if you're in Ontario, provincial disability benefits, CPP disability. The biggest CPP disability case I ever won was for a homeless person who was deceased, and it was his ex-wife, believe it or not, who went after the past money owed from CPP disability. We were able to get more than, normally you're limited to 11 months of benefits before the date of your application, but in that case, because of his level of illness, we were able to go back like years and years and years, many, many years, way more than 11 months. That was a very unique case. So generally speaking, if people, so if you were to fill out a form like this, let's say you are someone on this call and you've got a form similar to this, you sent it back in, but you didn't fill in some of the things. There's a few things you could do. They may come back and want clarifications, and then you can just say, yes, sorry, I'm able to fill that in. Or you could reach out to them and just say, I've thought more about that form. And if there were a few sections I didn't fill in, but I've thought more about it, and I think I do have the information if you need it, you could do that as well. You could wait and just see what they come back with. Sometimes they're happy with what you've given, because not all this information is necessarily needed. But you could always, if you are worried that you've sent one of these in the past, you can always contact the insurer and just say that you were reviewing it more and you were thinking maybe there's some other things you could fill in or whatever. Or you could just wait for them to come back and see if they have more questions. This is not necessarily a gotcha, but if you left things blank, or if you think you might have put something incorrect, definitely you can contact them to fix it. Because one of the things they put down at the bottom here was, I have the right to request access to my personal information in my file where appropriate to have any inaccurate information corrected. So you could, if you think that you might have put something inaccurate on this, you could contact them to try to fix it. No problem. And these are that we do help people with these types of cases. So you just have to get back in touch or get in touch with our support team. And there are points where we get involved in these cases, but usually it's going to be a point where someone is denied benefits. All right. Okay. Now, do I dare to even try to do this again? Do I dare? I think I do. I think I dare. All right. If you are a brave soul. Now, before you call in, stop. Before anyone calls in, there's a few ground rules here. I got it, because I'm realizing what some of the problems are with this. So before you call in, one thing you have to do, I think I have all the mic issues now solved. I figured it out with my wife after the last time we had a bungle on this, and also someone emailed me and reminded me of the exact thing I figured out with my wife. So I think I've got all the mic things figured out. But the problem is you're watching this right now, but when you're watching me speak at this moment, that was actually probably like 10 seconds ago. There's like a 10-second delay in the broadcast from when I'm speaking in my office here to when you actually see it on YouTube. So it's going to be confusing if you have the TV turned on or you're on your computer and you're listening to me, you're going to call in and hear me say hello, but you're going to still see me speaking on the TV. It is going to throw you off. So what you have to do is when you call in, you have to mute your TV or computer. So the other thing is we were having happening when whoever was calling in last week, the feedback from their microphone, like from me talking, was coming through and was throwing everything completely off because it sounded like an echo. But then I realized after, no, there's a 10-second delay. So I was just hearing myself talking through their TV. So you have to turn off your TV on your end or your computer, just turn down the sound or just shut down the YouTube altogether when you're calling in, so that we're not getting this feedback of me hearing myself talking 10 seconds ago and you being confused and saying, how is he talking to me when he's still talking on the TV? But there's a 10-second delay, or it's maybe not 10 seconds, but it's something like 10 seconds. All right. So if you want to call in, that's the number. Now, this number is only good. Oh, you know what? Oh my God. I never even thought of this. And it's my staff has gone home. Man, this is like Keystone Cops. I don't know if you guys remember that. You know what? You're probably not going to be able to call in because I got my staff to lock down. Let me see if I'm able to unlock it. This phone number, I don't want people calling this number all week. I was having a problem of somebody calling this number and driving me crazy because I can't. There's no way for me to block it. So my staff set it up so that the only time people can call this number is on Thursdays. And of course, I'm saying I'm going to do this today. So maybe we're going to be foiled again unless I figure out if I can recall how to do it. Just give me a second here. I might be able to. In the meantime, just put your questions in the chat. I'm going to see if I can fix this so somebody can call in if they want to. I'm going to try. Let's see here. And the person that would know how to do this immediately is gone home. Of course. Of course. There's always something. Okay, hold on now. Hold on. We use Zoom for our phone system, and it is super complex, believe it or not. Here we go. Edit. There we go. Look at that. Okay. I have changed. People should be able to call in now, I think. So if anyone wants to do a call, you're more than welcome to try. And you're more than welcome to try if you want to. If not, then we'll probably call it a if you want to call in. Now people are asking about getting my number. Here's the thing. I can't take calls from people. I'm not trying to be a big shot, but I get hundreds of emails a day, and what I've done to try to talk to this, I have 2 full-time support team members who do phone calls from people calling in with information. So the unfortunate thing is because of the sheer volume of people calling us every week. There's 2 full-time people. That's all their only job is to answer the phone and call people back. There's such an overwhelming number of phone calls and things that I absolutely cannot take phone calls or call people back. The only time I can do that is with actual clients, because I have so many clients and they want to talk to me as well. So I can't do phone calls with people. So what I decided long ago was to start doing stuff like this, where people can interact with me this hour a day that I can set aside to do it. So unfortunately, I can't do phone calls with people. We do offer limited paid consultations, but those are even done on a limited basis. So if you wanted to have a one-on-one phone call with me about your case, you could pay for a consultation. But again, we're limited in even the number of those we can offer. But if you call in, they'll let you know if there's any openings for something like that. But if you come on a Thursday or even tonight, you can phone in and talk to me. But I get it. Not everyone wants to talk to me about their personal issues and that kind of thing. But that's the thing. A lot of people will email me. So if you were to email me, what would happen is your email, sometimes I won't even see it. They just get forwarded to our support team and they will get back to people. So a lot of people try to reach out to me directly, and it's not, again, I'm not trying to be a big shot. It's just not possible. It's not possible for me to answer emails like kind of that are just incoming emails. I have a hard enough job answering all the emails from lawyers and clients and all that kind of thing. It's not possible for me to answer emails. I used to try to do it, but it always was terrible because, again, I don't even do emails daily because of the volume of them. I have to block out times where I just do emails because of how much work I have to do. So I have to block out days where today's my email day. So I may not even check emails for 2 days. So I start answering questions from people on email. They'll email me back right away. I don't get back to them from 2 days. Now they're upset. So it's not a thing I can do, unfortunately. I've had to, for my own sanity, it was part of what I learned a few years back, actually from an American lawyer, is to hire support team people whose only job it is to follow up with people, get back to them. And otherwise it becomes completely unmanageable. Okay. Yeah, today is Friday, but because normally my call-in days are on Thursday, but because I had to cancel it yesterday to go pick up my daughter from university, so I said I will do the call-in today, basically. So people can call in right now with that number on the screen. It should work, but again, it's not private, and so I agree that it's not right for everybody. Especially if you want to keep your information private, I would not use that. This is more for general questions where you're happy with you're participating in public education, but you may not. There may be situations where you don't want to ask stuff. Now, this number is not good after hours, so it's blocked most of the time. I won't answer this. If people call this number at different times. Okay, here we go. Cross our fingers. Hey there, it's David. Can you hear me?
Hi, good afternoon or good evening in your place.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah, this is Aurelia, the
Yep.
one I chat with you just now. So
Yeah.
like I'm not very comfortable to sign the paper because like I said, why I gonna sign this one? So I good idea. I have a friend give me this website,
Yeah.
and I'm lucky that I meet you guys. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very helpful, you know?
So if you have a paper like the one we reviewed today, like you would want to sign the questionnaire part of it. That part of it you definitely would want to sign. And if you didn't sign that part, then I would encourage you to get back in touch with them to say that you would sign it. The second part that dealt with like the certification, that one at the bottom there, that is a little different. And you saw how I went through there and said there's some sections that are okay, some that aren't great. But you do have to give them, if you didn't sign the authorization part of it, you still would have to give
No,
them
no, I didn't. No,
you would have to give them
I,
some authorization, is what I'm trying to say. Like, you have to give them some ability to use this. um you have to give them some ability to use this information with the vendors and people that in their orbit that they're using, even if it's not as broad of an authorization as they were asking for.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my case manager sent me this one, and then like you send email, and then he reply a little bit. I don't know if he or she, because like she called me, and then when I call her, she gonna say I'm away from my desk from this date, like this, blah blah blah. So I said she's not like, not, I don't know why she don't want to talk to me in, like, she can
Yeah.
call me. She know my number.
Yeah.
So one day I call Manulife and then ask them, do I can I refuse to sign this paper or
Yeah.
document? And the guy said, just give a paper at the back, like I am gonna attach an explanation why I don't want to sign
Yeah.
this paper like this,
Yep.
So that's the thing that they told me. And the things here is like, the employment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is here? Hold on. Because like I just photocopy this yesterday to make it sure that I have a copy, because it's not very clear in my email or the one I screenshot.
Yeah.
It says here, complete the section only if you have exploring returning to work in some capacity.
Yes.
Have you contacted your former employer? I don't contact them because like I'm on long term disability, and
Yep.
then like before, our nurse at work, she just checking me every month, and then after that, when I was in long term disability, they don't call me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You could put just no. You could put no there. That part of that
Okay,
the form of like the one we viewed. Yeah.
but I'm not seeking a job,
Yeah.
so
So you wouldn't need to fill that out. You would just put no and that kind of thing. But the other
okay.
parts you'd want to fill out.
And then there's a thing here that the I can't remember which day or a month I started with my other job, and it says here the tools, equipment, and or materials used on the job.
Yeah.
So do I need to state in here, attorney?
I think so. You want to give as much information as you think is reason. Like, you want to err on the side of giving them more information, just so that you don't want to be playing a game where you're trying to parse the language and give them like, you asked for this, but you didn't really ask for that. So if you're going through your different types of jobs you did, just put as much information as you think you can recall about it that they're asking for, even if you have to attach another page or something.
Okay. But the
Yeah.
unusual mental or physical requirements is like I just say the
It,
one you said
yeah,
now
it's
that
hard to know
I
what to
don't.
say there. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you know what it is,
Okay.
like some of the jobs will be self-explanatory. So if you put down this was a whatever type of job, it may be obvious what the physical duties are. So, but if it's something like where it's not clear, like if it says you were a I don't know, I don't even know an example, but a name of a job where it's not 100% clear what it would be, you could say the job involved a lot of standing, walking, sitting. Like, you could just put down like generally what it involved, managing people, like whatever the duties were, if you can think. But you can always put at the end like, this is the best I can recall, and that will help you in case they want more information. But this type of form, I really encourage people to fill it out and put it back in. Like I said, they're definitely going to use it to get a transferable skills assessment, but that's not a bad thing for you.
Okay. So if, for example, my claim has been denied, Is there anyone you can help me?
Oh,
Or
absolutely. Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
As what Sam McDonald told me that, for example, if I've been denied and then
yeah.
it takes for 3 months or 1 month, 2 months or whatever,
Yeah.
there is a charge of 30%. I said, oh, it doesn't matter. So I told my husband,
Yeah.
if they're gonna deny my claim, like even if I'm able, or even if I'm not still able to go back to work, because like what my case manager is not a severe and prolonged sickness that I have, but
Yeah.
like, I'm not still able to go back to work,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? So why they ask me to force me go back to work?
Well, because their goal is to the insurance company will take the view that people think they can't go back to work, but we can show on paper that you can. Like they're always looking for ways to shut off benefits. So even though your own doctor may think you can't go back to work, it depends on like how far into your disability claim are you? How many years?
Oh no, not yet. I started November 2023,
Yeah.
and then I'm on short term for 6 months, so
Right.
I think not even a year yet.
Right. So
December, January, February, March, April, May. So that's gonna be May.
yeah. So they're working towards. So you're still in
June,
the
July,
own
August.
occupation period where they will pay your disability benefits as long as you can't do your own job. But what these transferable skills, what they're doing here is they're thinking ahead and they're looking at, okay, once we get to the 2 year point, I'm assuming your policy probably has a 2 year point. Once we get to the 2 year point, they only have to pay you if you can prove that you do not have the ability to do any occupation with certain limit. It's not literally any occupation, but these transferable skills assessments will try to identify other jobs that you would be required to do after you get to the 2 year point that would fit within the profile. So when you're looking at jobs, once you get past the 2 years on benefits, it switches to any occupation. So any other job. Those jobs have to be things that fit within your abilities, your work history, your age, your credentials, and also have to enable you to earn a certain level of income. So that's what these transferable skills are looking for. They're trying to match you with jobs that fit within your skills and limitations, but also would produce enough income to put you above the threshold where they have to keep paying you after 2 years. That's what this is all about.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think not even a year. I think it gonna
Yeah.
turns one
Yep.
year.
This is normal though. Sometimes they plan this out earlier. So they're just getting ahead of the game here a little bit by getting this done. I still think for sure that with this type of a report that they are going to get this type of assessment done. That is not a bad thing. You don't necessarily want to prevent them from getting this type of report because it is what it is. And sometimes these reports come back in your favor, and they will tell them there's no jobs, or they will come back with a report that supports them, but is such a poorly done report that it falls apart quite quickly. So
Okay.
yeah, that's why I tell people, you know what, just let them do it this way. They do these reports behind your back, but they're usually done so poorly and they're so easy to pull apart on an appeal that you might as well just let them get them because you can't really prevent them.
I
They're
know.
allowed to get these kind of reports. So I really discourage people from throwing up roadblocks because it doesn't really help you in the long run for most of the time. You just want them to let them get their stuff, let them adjudicate their claim, and then if you have to appeal it, because they're going to deny you either way, you'd rather have them deny you based on this information they're getting rather than deny you for being like uncooperative.
Okay. So if they don't pay me this month, I can call Sam, or do you have a
Yeah,
direct
you could
email,
call our
or I
office.
can call you?
Yeah, you can call our office. Sam is one of our support people, so you could call him. But again, if they're not paying you, you would, before calling Sam, you'd want to call them to find out what's going on. Is this going to be a permanent thing? Have they given you? Because we would want to know like their reasons. Are they stopping your benefits?
Okay.
If they say, well, we're doing it because you didn't do this or that, like maybe we would tell you, well, you know what? Why don't you just sign that form that they want? And just let them go ahead because they might be terminating your benefits because they can't they're going to interpret you not signing forms as not reasonably cooperating with them. And maybe that's required under your policy, under your group plan. So it really will depend on the reasons. Now, you can still call us, but sometimes the solution is not like you need a lawyer to go after them. The solution will be find out what the reason is. And maybe it just means you have to submit a form, give them more information. But that could be the problem. They may not they may not be able to go forward with what they want to do because you haven't signed something. So now they're trying to figure out what to do, and that can sometimes delay payments of benefits.
Okay. So this notify Manulife Financial promptly in the following cases.
Yeah.
Of course, I know this one. So can I sign or not sign this area?
If yours is exactly like what we looked at today, you could sign it. But I wouldn't. But anybody else watching this in the future, like if your form is slightly different, I might not say that. But all of those things in that section that we reviewed today are things that I would tell somebody. In all of these situations, whether it says so in the policy or not, you should tell the insurance company of all those things because it helps you to do that. It helps you. You do it for yourself. You don't do it for them. Notifying them in all those situations helps you because it insulates you. If ever they try to cut you off, they can't rely, like any of those things, if you didn't tell them, even if you weren't required to under the policy, you still might have an obligation to under the common law. And it helps your credibility if you're the kind of person that would notify them for all those types of things. The judges would be more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt. So it really helps you from that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but the bottom part, I just give them some explanation in here.
You could, yeah. Or you could sign it. Like you could just sign it. There were parts in there that I went over in the video. You could rewatch the video and I'll show you the parts that I would cross out. But for the most part, that form is fine for the most part, except a few sections.
Yeah, but at the bottom part, there is, like plan member name and then plan member signature and then date signed.
Yeah. But you can cross out parts of the form, and that will mean that those things, you're not agreeing to that, but you're agreeing to the other things in the form. So it's not all or nothing. You can go through and look where I put things in the red. You could scratch those parts out and then just sign off on the rest of it. You want to allow them, like you don't want to throw up roadblocks for them to be able to use this report for however they want to use it, because doing so will just gum up the works on their end and will just delay the inevitable. If they're going to try to use this, it's going to happen anyway. So just let them do it more quickly and get it over with. That's my opinion on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this number is, I cannot call this one because you said.
No. This is just for the live call-in show. This isn't even my personal number. This is just a number we've set aside for this show. And if you try to call this number anytime outside of Thursdays between whatever, I had to go in and fix it. It just won't work at all. I think it probably just rings to nothing or says it's not available or something like that because it's shut down.
Okay. Yeah, because Sam told me that it's going to be around 11 a.m. here. And then I said, oh, no, I don't know how to do this one. So I sent him email and then he said, oh, you better create an account on in a Google and then you can go to the live stream. So
yes. Oh, yeah. Probably you had to have a Google account to be able to go. Yeah.
I know. I don't know how to do this stuff. So
you did it.
Illiterate, so
yeah, you made it.
I just Google it how to do what is this Google account in what is this. So I really appreciate attorney. Thank you so much. It's like I'm stressed now and then like more stressed. So I said, I don't know what to do with this one. So at least I have a few days to what is this form. So
with these forms, like if people are under a lot of stress, I always say if you're really under a lot of stress and then just sign the forms. Like none of these forms are going to be like signing your life away, quite frankly. Some of them are not ideal. And like I said, like there are sections I encourage people to just cross out. But for the most part, if you just want to have your case go along as smoothly as possible, then signing these forms is just usually the way to go, honestly. That is a general statement, but you need to look at everybody's case individually. But like for the form we looked at today, no problem with doing that form. Even most of that authorization thing at the bottom was fine. There's just like parts of it that I would say not ideal. But well, listen, thanks for phoning in.
Okay, I really appreciate that one, attorney. And maybe one day, what happened, I gonna email some again.
Yeah. Hopefully
And
you won't
he's
have to.
very
Hopefully they'll
cooperative.
just
So I really appreciate his. I find what is this, because like I keep looking around, and then like there is a person like even like signing the form,
yeah.
and they charge me money. So I said,
Yeah.
do I need to pay money? So he said, no, you're gonna talk to attorney David first before you know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, and have a good weekend.
Thank you much. Take care. Thanks for calling in.
Okay.
There we go. Look at that. First caller in. I was picking up a little bit of an echo there. I don't know if that was coming through for everybody else. I think it was the sound out of her own computer, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Normally, when you're talking with someone, they have to have headphones like I have in here. Otherwise, you can get an echo through your own mic. I think that's might be what's happening there. But anyway, we'll have to problem solve that in the future. All right, folks, it is 5:41. I'm going to call it a day here unless anyone had anything else. I appreciate everyone that showed up. We've still got some brave souls here. We're an hour and 41 minutes in. I am going to clip that. I'm going to clip that video at some point. It's probably close to an hour long, just the video of us talking about that form. But I will clip it at some point. We'll refer back to it in the future. I wish all of you guys the best weekend, and I will see you back here next week. I don't know the topics that we're going to be doing, but we're going to be back here next Monday talking about CPP disability, and next Tuesday talking about LTD. Because why not? Just a second here. Why am I not? Plug my book. So this is my book. This book does have a section in it on filling out forms. Covers a lot of the same things we did today. You can get this book you can see on the screen here, you can text LTD book to this phone number, and you should get texted back a link to that book. You'll get texted back a link to the book, so you can just click on it and download the book. You'll also get a link where you can order a paperback copy of this book. The order form obviously will ask for your address and things, so we can mail it out to you. It will also ask more details about what your situation is, and that way we can customize what we send out. I try to get this book to as many people as possible. It's a free book, but it is a helpful book. It will answer a lot of questions. We are going to be, you can see down below here, it says proven strategies to avoid the 11 mistakes that will ruin your disability claim. We're going to starting on Tuesday. I'm going to be going through all 11 mistakes over the next 11 weeks. So each week we're going to focus on a different mistake in the book, starting with the first mistake. Let's see what it is on Tuesday. The first mistake is, I think I know what it is, but I'm going to double check. The first mistake is, drum roll please. Okay, mistake number 1, using the bare minimum approach for your applications and appeals. So I'm going to talk about what the bare minimum approach is and why that is mistake number 1 in this book. Again, I thank you all for showing up. I'll see you back here next time. Take care.